So yeah, everybody that got up before had some sort of confession. So now I feel the need to confess. But before I do that, actually, I want to tell a little story, quick story. Just a little while ago, when the Dalai Lama was Radio City Music Hall, I don't know how many of you were there, but he's amazing to watch. But what really struck me out of all the wonderful things that he said was what he did right up in the beginning. So, you know, you're sitting in the audience, you know, you're kind of anticipating to hear what he has to say. And he comes up on the stage and, you know, he walks mindfully, right? You know, he walks to his chair, he sits in the chair, and he's spending a lot of time just sort of getting looks like he's getting himself organized. And it's a really long time, so I'm starting to think about myself going, I guess he's got to do this, he's got to take his time, you know. We all anticipate that, you know, he's just going to kind of get his head into it, and, you know, be mindful. And he keeps doing it. You know, now everybody's starting to stress out a little bit, you know. Because nobody likes this is New York. I mean, nobody likes this. And then what happens? And then finally, you see this kind of relief on him. And he looks at us, and what was happening was he couldn't find his prayer beads. And he looks, he goes, oh, I'm so attached to those prayer beads. And of course, everybody laughed. So I immediately felt better about myself after that, because I figured if he can be attached to anything, then it's okay for me to say that I've been practicing mindfulness for almost 30 years. Because anybody who knows me understands that it's like I'm such a fraud. I mean, there's not a mindful aspect of me at all. You know? And I've had this issue for a long time, I have to say. I grew up in the 60s. Everybody gets that. You know, I learned to alter my consciousness in the right way, which I won't tell my kids. Hopefully they won't watch this. And then, you know, I moved in the 80s. The 80s, very stressful. I was in business, you know, a lot of stuff going on. I was already doing some yoga and meditation, but I wasn't very good at it at all. In fact, the only time it really, really worked is I found, anybody ever do a flotation tank? I watched this movie by William Hurt called Altered States, and he's in these tanks and you hallucinate and all that stuff. I said, oh, this is cool, I got to go do that. So I found one, you know, it was expensive actually, but I found one in New Jersey, and I said, I got to do this. And then I found out that you don't have to do it for 10 minutes or 20 minutes, you could sleep there all night. So I got into it. So I would do these all-nighters, you know, and I would just hallucinate. And I think it was probably the only time I was really present in the moment. My whole life was in that flotation tank, you know, where you'd lay there, and it'd be so quiet. You know, you can't feel anything, right? It's sensory deprivation, basically. Which doesn't sound good, right? It doesn't sound like that would be a happy thing, but it was really actually quite nice. And within maybe a half hour, an hour, all you'd hear is your heartbeat, and then all you have is your mind. And your mind would just, you know, you'd have a monkey mind, but it was very intense, so it was actually quite good. So why am I telling you all this? I don't actually know, except I get up every morning now, and I've been doing this for a year, at 3 o'clock every morning. I get up every morning at 3 o'clock, and for about, you know, maybe 75 minutes, I do yoga, and then I do meditation, and then I get up. And then from then on, it's downhill. It's completely downhill. You know, I have a long commute, so I get in the car, I'm almost immediately pissed off about something. I don't think I breathe for an hour. Probably not, anyway. I multitask, you know. I mean, I'm driving, I'm drinking coffee, I'm looking at my phone, I'm doing all the things you're not supposed to do. And you can't, you know, I'm a psychologist. I know. Another fraud. More fraudness. You know, I know that you're not supposed to do all this, right? And of course I tell my kids, don't text, don't do, and, you know, all the way down Route 80, I'm doing this. And then, so by the time I get to the parking lot here on 119th Street, I'm just totally aggravated about everybody. And that's how the rest of the day goes. And then, of course, I teach the students, and I aggravate them, and they aggravate me, and, you know. It's a horrible day. Not that this is much better, to be honest with you. So why is somebody asked somebody like me to introduce this? I don't actually know, but when I thought about it, I said, all right, well, there's actually some rational reason. One is because I probably work 18 hours a day. You know, I have no life balance. I don't understand how to do that either. So I put a lot of work in, and I start the day in a mindful mood. So maybe I actually know something. At least I know what not to do, right? So, but as it turns out, you know, I've actually been thinking about this for a long time. And even though I'm not good at practicing it, I think about it a lot. And so every once in a while, there's a glimmer of practice that goes on during the day. There's some evidence in my mind that says this is actually useful. In fact, I have to say, I should give a shout out now, while I have a couple seconds, to Lisa Miller. She'll be, Dr. Lisa Miller, you know her, I'm sure? She'll be back later. You know, she taught me when I was here doing a postdoc in clinical. And, you know, she's really the one that helped me pull it all together, where she said, where she, I guess, demonstrated to me that, you know, even though I had all these disconnected things, that maybe there's this kind of spiritual over thing that you can pull together and kind of integrate everything. She didn't say it that way. So what happens next is I said, okay, maybe if I think about mindfulness and work day after day and day, you know, it'll help in some way. And I started doing new things with my job here that I had never done before, and became much more socially responsible. So a lot of things that went on that I think, you know, Lisa really helped me understand. So since then, now today I do global programs around the world, teaching women and youth about entrepreneurship, and you know, I now see the whole reason for mindfulness in the workplace. Even though, you know, when I was in business, they always thought I was weird if I even mentioned the fact that I did yoga or anything. So always like, they'd look at you, come on, Jack, that's not. Then when I came to academia in Columbia, I said, oh, you know, Columbia University, of course, everybody's going to accept you. But I went to the engineering school, and they don't understand yoga or anything like that either. So that was helpful. The business school's a little bit better. They actually have mindful workshops there, so at least they sort of get it. So what I've learned is that when you think about all these things, especially in the study of venture creation and entrepreneurship, that there are so many opportunities where mindfulness will actually be helpful. And we need to study this more, I know, but I'm very excited about the fact, and as you'll hear in these next few speakers, that there's a lot of application of mindfulness going on in the workplace. All right, so when I originally did work in innovation, I saw a lot of cognitive behavioral aspects of mindfulness. And when I think back now on the work that we did back then, I realized what a role mindfulness would actually play throughout that innovation process. And now that, you know, I focus more on venture creation, I see the same things. I see the same things where, you know, we need to be able to be open-minded. We need to be able to scan the environment in a way that's where distraction needs to be, you know, suppressed. All right. There's a lot of very cognitive aspects to all this, and mindfulness actually plays a great role. And I'm both at an interpersonal level and an intrapersonal person. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's the metacognitive part of me right now going, come on, Jack, get your act together. So anyway, so I'm very happy to do this. I'm going to suggest to you that, you know, we spend, even if you have work-life balance, you know as well as I do, you spend at least 50% of your day related to work, you know, between getting there and coming back and everything. We all spend so much time at work. Mindfulness can be a critical strategy for us, being our best during the day, being our best at work, and learning how to actually do the balance that I'm no good at, but you should do it. So anyway, I look forward to hearing the speakers. I think we're going to hear some compelling evidence of why mindfulness is important in the workplace, and I invite you to attend to them carefully. All right, thank you very much.